Yeah, I'm on a quest. I'm an anthropologist, and I try to understand how we can be human together, with the people we love, but also with the ones we don't like that much. So I travel the world to understand and to find ways and answers, how we can shape the world in a way, in a humane way, in a peaceful way, and a constructive way. And today I'd like to talk about the importance of the role of silence in this, because I feel sometimes that we forgot this human skill of silence, and without that, we cannot shape the world in a way that everyone has its space. So I think that many times sound rules over silence, knowing rules over not knowing, and talk rules over just listening. But if we leave silence out of the mix of our behavior, the levels of trust and creativity just go down. So we need silence just as much as we need sound, and it's the combination that makes the music. It's the combination that makes us feel alive. So during my travels, I learned a lot about the different ways we can treat silence. And today I will share some of the most important lessons I learned in India, Togo, and the UK. But first of all, let me tell you about the start of my personal journey to appreciate silence. About 15 years ago, I fell ill, like seriously ill. My body wasn't functioning. I slowed down. My thyroid wasn't working. So silence was forced upon me, and I hated it. I couldn't process information. I couldn't put words into one sentence. I couldn't even drive my car because it was just way too fast. And I was fighting this pace. And one day, I met one of my doctors, and he said, "Why don't you just surrender to the pace of silence?" Because, he said, you're at the place where your soul is being built. Now you just go build it. You're at the place where your soul's being built. That sentence that brought tears to my eyes, and it sometimes still does. And I must say that in the past weeks of our Corona lockdown, I, remembered this moment and realized once again that it is in the silence that we can hear the voices of our souls. Because silence is not the absence of something. Silence is the presence of everything. Courage, love, trust, wisdom, it all grows in the silence, not in the words and not in the talking. Silence is actually the loudest form of communication. And it has a locked language desperately waiting to be heard. I think that silence makes us human. It's where we develop our connections. It's where creativity is hiding out. And I strongly believe that if we lose the ability to embrace silence, we lose out on our humanity. And those are big words. And I do think it's important to find your voice and to speak up. In my life, I learned that it's important to be bold and brave. To jump in a conversation, to be assertive, to speak up. There's so many problems we have to tackle. We got to speak up, be loud, be fast, do it now, because we have to fix it. Time is money, don't waste time. But the thing is that somehow we created this world in which sounds rules over silence. We have so many screaming conversations in which no one is actually listening to what's going on. The cleverest one-liner might go viral. Politicians fire one-liners to each other. And it drives us nuts. At least it drives me nuts. And I think that we live in a rhythm in which everyone is just talking and no one is listening. Our office spaces are even too loud to finish a thought process. And if we don't stop ourselves, the loudness of our opinions, they block us from seeing the actual world surrounding us. So when is the last time you've seen a politician sit together with other politicians and be touched by the words the other person is telling him or her, and the willingness to change their minds because they find new ideas in the silence between the words? New ideas are born in the silence, not in the words. Without silence, We cannot build bridges between our differences. We cannot find new ideas. I think even without silence, we might lose our democracies. So therefore, it's of major importance to master the human skill of silence. And during my travels, I got some lessons on how to do that. So let's first go to India. I was there last January, and I visited Chhattisgarh. And there lives a community which called themselves the Ramnami. And they were seen as untouchable in the time the caste system was still alive. And untouchable means that people don't even want to be touched by your shadow. They were excluded from all parts of social life. And they decided to come together, not so much to fight their social position, but to build on their inner strength. And in doing so, they created a community and different ways of living. And one of it is that they couldn't enter temples. So they decided to tattoo the name of Lord Ram on their bodies. And therefore, their full bodies became the temples. They do a lot of chanting. They come together. And just to give you a feel of what that feels and looks like, I'll show you a short clip of the documentary Patterns of Life, which will be broadcasted later last year, in which I had the privilege to take a part of. There's two lessons I like to share, which I learned from my experience with the Ramnami. First of all is that chanting and singing together allowed me to feel the silence within myself and to feel the deeper connections with the people around me and the world around me. And to me, I realized deeper that music puts me in touch with the feelings, the emotions I cannot express otherwise, and I think it counts for more of us. Music holds like the key to the unlocked language of silence. So to experience deeper connections together with others, we need to sink in our rhythms, we need to tune into each other, and when we do, we feel that we build those connections. And I think that it's part of the social unrest today that we live in a world where it's not really synced into each other. We're not tuned into each other. And therefore, we become disconnected if we don't take the time to do so. And the second lesson I learned is that it's actually the silence that makes the music. It's like in every music piece that when you hear a note, that after that, your mind starts wondering what the next sound will be. Music creates itself in between the notes. That's where the actual creation process happens. And I realize it's the same in dialogues and interactions. The Ramnami go chanting, like for a long time. And during the chant, they connect. And they listen. And in the end, they sit down, drink tea, have a small bite, in silence. And I realized being with them that it's in those silence you can actually shape new relationships together with other people. And being interested in the rhythm of life, the rhythm that people shape together to create this world and to live together, I found myself at a voodoo festival. Because voodoo is a rhythmic religion. Voodoozy, they believe that the world is full of spirits and each spirit has its own rhythm. And if you play that rhythm, if you tune into the rhythm, if you dance the rhythm, you invite the energy of the spirit to come in. Now, I was at this festival and I started talking with my son, and my son is a voodoo priest. And he told me about his religion, and he was just upset that people had this image, because most of you will, by the word voodoo, think about dolls and spells and other black magic. But that's not the voodoo I experienced in Togo, because my son said, please come, and I'll well, teach you, tell you, have you experience the voodoo of my people. And that's what I did. So I entered there, and in my anthropological research to the essence of voodoo, I experienced a couple of ceremonies, and one of them took about 10 hours, just to give you a feel. Ik geef me over aan het ritme van de nacht. That was intense. And there is so much I could share related to the experience I had during the voodoo ceremonies. But for now, I'd just like to shed light on one of the lessons I took. And that is the role and the importance of rituals to allow yourself to enter a silent space. Because each time we went to a new stage of the ceremony, there was this very small ritual with a very clear sequence of actions, like offering, or cowbells, or small chanting. And it is those rituals which help us to move from the ordinary into the extraordinary space. And once you're in that space, your mind can go anywhere. You're kind of invited to go to an inner journey in silence. And this is where you see me sitting during the ceremony, where I was confronted with many hard life questions. And they were prompted by the offering that was about to happen. And it was not quiet. I mean, there was tons of noise. But somehow the tapestry of the noise, the ritual surrounded me, created a space in which I could let my mind go to places I'd never been before, to find the voices there, to listen to my soul. Because in shamanism they say that during life and the traumas you have in life, you lose bits and pieces of your soul. And the healing is about retrieving those bits and pieces. And that's exactly what I experienced in Togo. So the lesson learned is that we need rituals to allow ourselves to go into this special place which is out of the ordinary. And, you know, what I learned is that I realized that I don't often create those spaces. Question to you. When is the last time you sat in silence and you could hear your heartbeat? Or when is the last time you sat in silence with your loved ones and you could hear their heartbeat? Or with your colleagues? Your leadership team? I mean, these moments are rare, but we need them. Because in the silence, we have the opportunity to hear the things we mostly ignore. Now, to be in this silence is not like switching off and wait it out until it's over. And that's something which I learned from the Quakers. The Quakers are experts in silent meetings. They are originally a Christian group, and their community started in the mid-17th century in England. So to understand their ways of living together and the ways they have silent meetings, I traveled to the Lake Districts in the UK. And the Quakers have different types of silent meetings. And they're very well structured. You know, they sit together in a circle, and it starts when someone starts the meeting. And the idea is, originated when the community started, is that we don't need someone else to explain the word of God to us. Everyone is equal. So we can all talk to God and we can listen to that, but we need to listen. And they call it, we need to listen to the light. So their whole silent meetings are structured in a way that we can listen to the light. Well, when you're in the meeting, you don't have to be silent. You can talk, there's no issue. But the only thing they say is, only make sound if it enriches the silence. So if you sit in the meeting and you feel the urge to say something, just question yourself. Is it my ego talking? Is it something bigger than me which wants to express itself? Could it be mistaken by a political statement or a personal lecture? And if the answer is that you feel it's something bigger than you say what you have to say. The result is that in many Quaker meetings, it's pretty silent. And they call this process a discernment process. And what they taught me, and the lesson I took, is that I more often ask myself, do I need to speak out now or not? Is it my ego talking or not? Because sometimes our words can improve the silence, but many times they just give words to something we don't need words for. Some things should be left unsaid, because the words would kill the meaning. Well, if you are someone who kind of forgot the human skill of silence, then remember, in essence, it's a very easy thing to do. And it has something magical to sit in silence with someone else, to create the ritual space you need to let your minds wander together, deepen the connections, build the trust between the words. So basically, it's just that I'd like to urge you to just have the courage, once in a while, to just shut up and be with what's there, and to make only those sounds that enrich our silence. Because remember, we can make sound, but we cannot make silence. Silence is the given. Sound just disrupts the silence. And our souls are being built in the silence. So I invite you, especially during those days we live in now, where the world is full of loudness. Let's go, sit down, and build our souls.